Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Jolene's Happy Time Craftcast. I am Jolene, and it is wonderful to see you on this special edition of the show. We're doing two this week instead of one because I have a very special guest, and I know I say it every time. I'm a broken record, but I mean it every single time, of course. But before I bring Natalie out, I just want to wish you and yours the merriest of merry, the happiest of happy, whatever it is you are doing in the next several days to regroup and take good care of yourself and take care of those who are close to you. I hope that in that time, if you are artsy and fartsy like me, you'll have an opportunity to get into your workspace, your craft space, and just really dive into like the juicy, lovely nature that so many of us get from working with our hands. I'm going to be doing that today. I'm working on a really big project, but I'll get to more of that later when we start to talk about what is on my work table. So let's get back instead to today's guest. Natalie Lou is a very special person. You know, she is the kind of person where when you meet people who know her, they all have the same reaction. They all say, "Oh my God, I love Natalie. She's so amazing." And they're not wrong. Like she has, like we were talking about with Royce recently, she's got that inner spark, that inner light, that magnetism that just makes you want to be around her. She's amazing. And what she does in the artistic space is she has had over like 25 years in healthcare, and she inspires resilience in caregiving as a patient safety coach and founder of the Reflective Collective Nurse. The collective is the community, the reflective nurse is the business. I'll let her talk more about that. But what she does is she blends art, communication, and creativity in her work. And she reveals how art and journaling can lift brain health, foster mental well-being, and may even extend longevity. So yes, please, to all of those things, sign me up right this moment. So I know you'll do a very good job of welcoming Natalie to the Happy Time Craftcast. Hi, Natalie.
Hi.
Thank you
Good
so much
day.
for being here. Thank you. I am
Oh.
so what I said in like your introduction, I mean, my goodness, friend, like when I meet people who know you, it always comes with this, "Oh my God, she's amazing." And they're absolutely right. I would imagine that must make you feel a little shined up.
Well, the wealth in this lifetime is the wonderful people I get to be in community with. So I bounce it right back at all of them. Yeah.
Oh, that's so sweet. So can you tell us about the reflective nurse?
Yep.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because I
Yeah.
know I always mix it up with your
Yeah.
community. So tell
Yeah.
us about those two things.
Yeah. I would say the reflective nurse is my business. It's the in the background piece,
Okay.
and the reflective collective is the community that has grown out of my small business, which is really a creative outlet for me in my healthcare career. So I decided, it's been 10 years now, come 2025, that I was going to need a creative outlet. So
Sure.
my long story short, I found the longest, most expensive way to become a nurse. So my first
Nice.
degree was communication and English writing. And, being a 20 something, wondering what am I going to do with this communication and English writing degree,
Good.
I knew in my head, heart, and gut that finding something really meaningful to speak and write about with my communication and writing degree
Mhm,
would
mhm,
be
mhm,
key.
mhm.
And then I found my way to a path in nursing in my late 20s and became a nurse in my early 30s. And I knew that being in a very science-driven field, and healthcare is art and science.
Sure.
Nursing is art and science. And that being said, you're steeped in the science. You really have to pause to take it to that layer that is the
Sure.
art of the work we do. And so I knew about, I guess it was the 7-year itch. I became a nurse in 2008, and in 2015, I knew that I was going to need something, a creative outlet to
Yes.
sustain what I do in my day job, if you will, which I love very much. And my creative endeavor is not an escape route from the work that I do as a certified professional in patient safety. But
Mhm.
knowing that being invited to, speak outside of the work that I do and host events outside of the
Right.
day job, if you will, that having a business entity would probably be the smart thing to do. And it really felt like the merging of who I was before I was a nurse and who I am as a nurse. And so then that's evolved into realizing that the reflective nurse is only as reflective as who she surrounds herself with, right? And so having a community around me is key. And the reflective collective, although started by healthcare professionals among my community, myself, and many who share this vision with me, that we need social connection in our practice of creative expression. Even though it was started by healthcare professionals, what we're talking about and what we're reflecting on, it's applicable to anyone.
Right.
And, just to kind of punctuate what the reflective collective is all about, and then some of the good stuff that we're going to be talking about today in terms of expression. In May of 2022, our Surgeon General, Vivek Murthy, put out a health advisory for the nation and said, healthcare workers being burned out is not just a healthcare problem. Like, this is a problem that all of us face. If our healthcare system is burned out, no one wants to go to the doctor, right? No one wants to see the person who's not taking care of themselves take care of us, right?
Right.
And so I like to reference that really was a calling to me to take my small business and really not take a right turn, but just expand what I was doing in terms of invitations to go speak and do and hold events and this and that. I really felt called to pull together a community. We know that the word resilience can sound bristling when you're burned out.
Right.
And so acknowledging that being together in practices that are evidence-based in order to feel resilient. That's really what the reflective collective is all about. And it's really an answer to a calling that I felt after reading and taking in that advisory from May of 2022. So thank you to our Surgeon General, if you're listening.
I am sure they are.
Maybe I'll forward it to his staff. He also has a podcast. He's the first Surgeon General to ever serve 2 terms and to have a podcast. So it's a good one.
That's awesome. Like we're kindred spirits. Okay. So I have like very special people in my life who are in healthcare. And one is my daughter and the other is a very dear friend, plus lots of other people. But what I notice about 2 people in particular is that they have, oh gosh, I might cry.
Good. Because, cry it out. That's it's practice.
So like when I think about my daughter and I think about what she does and how she takes care of people at their most vulnerable. She works in memory care and she loves it. And like the patience one must have and where you must find resilience in yourself to not only be patient, but loving and compassionate. I'm so proud of her. I think that's where my emotions are coming from. Right?
Good.
Because I couldn't do what she does. And I said on the show this Wednesday that she just started crocheting, Natalie. And I taught her when she was younger, like in middle school. And then recently she was like, Mom, and she just asked, and I said, well, you're going to double crochet and then you're going to slip stitch and you're going to, blah, blah, blah. And she was like, okay, got it. And she just whipped together a chicken inside of, a few minutes. I was just like, we're finally like speaking the language and, but anyway, I digress. So I guess my point is that when you talk about resiliency and taking really good care of people, I think sometimes in the healthcare industry, I think some of us need to take a pause because I think if I didn't know, obviously, my child and who she is and what she brings and what she's like and what her days are like, I wouldn't have such a deep appreciation for what you folks do. Like, oh my gosh, like you are our most precious and valuable. Right?
Back at you. Thank you for the space that you create for folks to find true resilience. Thank you. I can feel where you're coming from because that's that feeling that is coming out of you as you describe, thinking about your daughter's career and thinking about healthcare professionals across the system, that's the feeling that inspired me to become a nurse. And so if we don't have a reflective practice to as one of my mentors in nursing recently said to me, to pause and be, you know, what is anything that we're doing, you know, and the nursing theory that's really shaped my practice is about relationship-based care, where at the center there is self, and around self is community and those who we work alongside to deliver care. And then is the patient family we're caring for. And if we don't take care of that core and those who we are in community with as we take care of others, it's felt, it fractures.
Right. Wow. So let's talk about the artsy stuff.
Yes, I love it.
Okay. So I get the whole right brain, left brain, science, art, boop, right? One of I lived in Maryland before I lived in Minnesota, and like a good friend from high school also lived out there. And she was get this, she's an organic, organic chemist.
Okay.
Right? Like PhD.
Yeah.
Like
I follow.
Right?
Like not a dummy.
No, not at all. But she was so creative. Like she left the whatever that was called. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she would she made a pot holder rack by welding forks. And then she you know what I mean? So like the fork came up, and then it was like a pot holder hanger, and then she did all these things with the tines.
Yes.
And what I remember about those moments was looking at her, and I was like, Susan, like your brain does all the things, and my brain just does the one thing. Like,
well, your brain does those things too. I've met you.
In the pot holder space, you know.
Yeah.
I was just like,
yeah.
But I had such admiration, like you and Susan have this in common, right? That you're using art and science, and I must imagine that. When you get to your creative expression, it must feel really soothing.
Oh, it is. It's a cocoon.
Or necessary, or what's your word?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, lots of words. I have all the words. It's a cocoon in that it's a place, creativity is a place that I can crawl into and just like feel held. And it's the place where I most feel like myself.
Yeah.
And creative expression is the place where I get back in touch with my own voice and I can practice feeling out how I attune to where I'm at with things. And then that makes it easier to be that not just authentic self, but effective self then when presenting to take care of others. Right. And creativity is, I mean, that space, it's a portal, you know. A lot of my doodles that I've done over the years in a pile of sketchbooks, like a lot of times I'll trace something round and then and then that's my boundary. And I'm like, okay.
Oh yeah, sure.
It's almost like a
whole bunch of metaphor in there. Yeah,
right.
I get
it's
it.
like, what's the quote that wraps around this? And then what am I going to tuck inside of it?
Right.
And then as much as there's a doodle and kind of a framing of this circle that really, it feels like an opening creativity or a creative practice. It feels like an opening. It feels like this portal and something to go through. And it feels, you know, in the words of Rumi, like the door is round and open. Don't go back to sleep. And yet feel free to take a nap here while you're, you know, taking the pause, right? You know, creativity is just all of those things. And you're referencing a scientist who has an art practice. Like the most renowned scientists have creative habits or outlets, you know, have an outlet for music or cooking or, you know, creating in some way, shape or form. And so I think on a very intuitive level, I knew that I needed creative outlets along the journey, like little portals to jump through and jump in. And then just being someone who is a lot more accountable and just has a lot more fun when others are with me. Like that's where the community then comes.
Right.
Yeah.
So a couple words you said that I feel like I have to highlight. One, cocoon.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That makes a whole lot of sense. Yeah. Tomorrow's winter solstice. It's time to cocoon. Let's do this. Yeah.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
And then this week when I was talking to my friend Royce, she's from Royce Cycle. She's amazing. Just love her so much. But she was talking about how her connection to her art practice,
Mm.
she used the words saved.
Mm.
Like it
Mm-hmm.
saved her during times that were more challenging. And
Yeah.
you know, I've had that too in my like walk as an
Yeah.
adult and a parent, you
Yeah.
know, and like the things that I've had to, you know, deal with and sometimes survive.
Yeah.
Um, that it's like a calling for me,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I am so much happier and present and kind and
Mm.
decent
Yeah.
when I am able to have a
Yeah.
creative expression, and not
Yeah.
just the ones for, because, you know, for me as a content creator on social media,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of content is different.
Yes, it
Like
is.
it hits the brain differently.
Yep.
So when I'm able to create in a space where I am, as Royce said, I am just in the flow and just enjoying it, because I've
Yeah.
been working on a really big project lately. And why don't we talk about this right now?
Yeah. I love it.
So what is on your art table, work table, like right now? Like what are
Yes.
you working on?
I love it. Okay. This is a good one.
Yeah.
I will tell you. Okay, so what's on my art table right now is creative
Yes.
chaos. Okay, it's creative chaos, which is part of the creative process.
Sure.
We
No
know that.
judgment.
When
I
we
identify. Yep.
normalize that, right?
Mhm.
So a couple of things. You know, I'm just wrapping up the certification as a creativity coach. The program is called Kaizen Muse Creativity Coaching. It's from this mastermind artist, speaker, like renowned author Jill Badonsky out of San Diego. And the creativity coaching cohort that I was a part of, August through December, taught me a lot of these words that I just spit out as I started to share what's on my table, right? It's creative chaos. It's like, so a couple things. My big project of the season or of the
Yes.
moment is I sell these calendars, right? And it's not just a calendar. It's not, and I hate to even use the word sell. Like I have put into the world, I have pushed out of the nest many of my original artworks on months of a calendar. And
I love that.
really,
Push out of the nest. That's amazing. I'm totally going to steal that, by the way.
Right. I mean, right. And so it's you take piles of sketchbooks, years of dailyish habits of doodling and quotes and there's what you see on the surface of these calendar cards, right? I'm just gonna grab what I'm talking about. So when I say desk calendar, like this is what I'm talking about. So I sat down at one point with my pile of sketchbooks and I said, what would this be like? And I'm showing, if you're listening later and not watching, I'm showing just the months of the calendar, and these are just some of my favorites. These are just artworks by me, and it's really not just what's on the featured card of each month, but it's some of the thought work and journaling that I did behind the scenes in each of those little doodles. And so currently on my table, like we've renamed the kitchen table shipping and receiving, because I am putting out 300 calendars across the country. And actually we mailed one to India yesterday, which was kind of exciting, so it's, for
You're
me,
global, Natalie.
Yeah,
you're global.
I know. I'm internationally renowned creative journaler Natalie Lou. Like, you're welcome for being on your podcast.
Thank you. It was like 1 degree of separation from the Surgeon General. Love it. Love it.
I'm 2 degrees from him. More.
Oh,
nice.
Anyway,
I literally have a table full of calendars going. Actually, most of them went out in yesterday's mail to meet holiday deadlines, and yet I do still have some. But more important than mailing out these calendars, which feature original artwork of mine, is another project, and that is, and I kind of wanted to show you. Can I just hold it up to the calendar?
Yeah. And while you're going to get that, let me just say the world is small, because one of my dear friends is here in the comments, Lisa Lake.
Yeah.
Saying, she's just like all caps. She's like, oh my God, I'm in Jill's underground.
Stop it. I'm a member of the underground. Okay.
Yes.
The world is tiny in the best way. Let's connect in the underground.
Right. And we brought that together. Right.
That's so
and
cool.
Like if you and Lisa, it's
love it.
Serendipity. Yep.
Okay, are you ready for this, Lisa? Yes. Okay, so what's on my table right now? So I'm holding up, for those listening later, a beautifully dried, hand harvested by moi, bouquet of fresh lavender, or now dried lavender.
Right.
And I have this little vessel, this little bottle with a cork in it. I'm going to shake this up. It's full of lavender. And I'm taking a deep belly breath. For
right
those
now.
listening, even if you don't have lavender in front of you, let's just all take a deep belly breath together. Right? Okay. Pretend it's lavender or your favorite smell. Okay.
Right.
And so this is what's on my table right now is I have all these little vessels that I have accumulated to bottle up this hand harvested lavender that I picked myself this summertime when visiting family in Washington State. And the relevance and the connection to my creative journaling practice is that I have a ritual around dropping into the space of creative expression. And it starts with just taking a deep breath because we've not known each other long, Jolene, but those who know me and who are listening, it takes me a minute sometimes just to take a breath and land. And so
I have no idea what you are talking about.
Right. Never. Right.
I am grounded always.
So, right, like we have to remind ourselves, we have to have very visual and tangible things in our lives. We have to have things like yoga mats that remind us, I do yoga. Like, we need lavender to remind ourselves, like, I pause and be in breath, right? And so I'm bottling up what is left of my summer 2024 harvest of lavender. And, for example, folks who have bought like a pile of calendars, for example, this is a little gift that I give to folks, but it's just also something that I try to give to people in my family. And it's a creative project for me because it has really taken me back to the lavender field to be peeling, taking these little buds off of the stems and then sifting them into these little bottles by hand. And I have a whole mood board about that day in the lavender field. And it is like, I'm not kidding you. Like,
I love
real.
that.
It is, and my suitcase has never smelled so good. But anyway, this is, I walk you into the lavender field with me.
Yes, I'm there with you. I can see it. It's like knee high. Yep, with you. Yep.
Because this is also part of the creative process too. Like when we get in touch with that creative being and self, it can be easy to just kind of like end up down a rabbit hole and then just wonder, how did I get here and where am I and how do I re-ravel the unravel and come back? And I just know that having practices and real products around me that are sourced by moments in my life are real things that I can have in place to then drop into the creative process and to write my best journal entries and poetry and haikus and love letters to myself and others and doodles that are not just, again, the face value and what you see on a featured calendar card, but really story.
It sounds to me like, I think the takeaway for those of us listening is that, like, Natalie, you are explaining and describing a really intentional process, right? Like, you've got intention behind what I think you called drop in, drop into the space, which I think is really cool. And something that, I mean, that's a huge takeaway for me because I kind of walk through this world because, I have a big girl job, a couple of them, right?
Yes.
So, like, in the back of my mind, I'm always like, I love and appreciate this moment, but I cannot wait until I can get to my studio. Like, I'm, like, I'm a little bit half, 3/4. 3/4 present because I'm always pulled here in my studio. And like, so when you said mood board, I have to tell you a funny thing that happens in our family. So I know you've met my spouse. He's amazing and lovely, and everybody loves him, especially me. He's a tall drink of water, that one. He's got the body of a teenage. Oh, that sounds gross. But he's
that's the other podcast. No.
I mean it as gross as that sounds. But he's aged well, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, so he is an engineer in his vocation and training and life's work. And now he's an innkeeper, a chef, a yogurt maker. He, fixes walls and toilets and like he's got all of these like new responsibilities.
Yeah.
And like, bless his heart, he's such a good, like at Big Raven Farm, like when he's so good at taking care of people. I am
Mm.
so proud of him. Like, I have a tendency to want to cut corners sometimes. And like, for example,
Yeah.
when we're chopping the onion, I'm like, Jesus, are these fine? Like, they're diced, but he's like, no, no, keep going. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
he's all the details. He's
Yeah.
all of the things. And he says all the time, you know, we want people to have an amazing experience.
Yeah.
And he's not wrong, right?
Mm.
I'm totally with him. But my point was
Yeah.
that he is in the science and art thing.
Mm-hmm.
He is 90% scientist,
Yeah.
90%,
Yeah.
10% like creative expression guy.
Yeah.
So one of the things I say to him often is, I think we should sit down and we should talk about some goals.
Yeah.
This man, Natalie, rolls his eyes at me from his toes, like all the way to the sky, you know, just like, oh God, goals. And then he'll say something like, why don't you probably put that on your vision board? Dude, like, respect the space, man. Like, come on.
I know.
But
I know.
when you say mood board, like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
get what you mean, because
Yeah.
I totally believe in the power of manifesting and the
Yeah.
power of, in fact, I saw a video recently where a scientist person was talking about manifestation, and they were talking about how to take the woo woo out of it and like
Sure.
make
Yep.
it more
Rigor. The rigor.
comfortable,
Yep.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Make it more comfortable for
Yep.
our scientisty friends like Darren. And he was saying, he's like, you say it out loud,
Yeah.
you write it down, and as you write it down, you read it and say it out loud.
Yeah.
And it was more about like training your brain.
Sure.
You know, like, it was great. I should have kept the video because I'm kind of chopping it apart. But I love, again, with you, we circle back, my friend, to intention,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, I think that
Mm-hmm.
comes through.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I said what's on your work table,
Mm-hmm.
what
Yep.
I got was that you drop in with the lavender,
Yeah.
and you do a lot in books, right?
Yes.
Art
Yes.
journaling, visual journaling.
Yes.
Sounds
Yes.
like you've got some writing, poetry, all
Yeah.
things.
And this time of year, you know, just to reference that, you know, what I've really been into lately, and I offered a workshop at the conference where we recently connected, Minnesota Cares, about recipe card journaling. And so another thing on my art table right now is literally a recipe card box that holds just 4x6 note cards that any of us probably either have in our home or can run and grab at Walgreens or Target, whatever, you know,
right.
To not be so precious about something. I've bought the journal, right? I've bought the journal that's like around and like so gorgeous and so precious. And then I'm like, what am I even doing this? Right. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and then for me, I knew this fall, I knew I was entering into a busy season.
Yep.
And I decided that if I could just give myself a daily-ish habit, and that's a Kaizen Muse like term, daily-ish habit, like so that if we fall short of daily, we're being human.
Right.
But if I were to give myself a daily-ish habit to just, what can I write on a recipe card? Like, I can just drop in and I can take the time it takes to just journal on this recipe card. And because I've been creative journaling for years and years, I have hundreds of prompts in my mind. But on my art table, the recipe card box remains because I know that I'm going to be better at anything else I'm making if I've taken a pause to just take 10 minutes, set a timer for 5 minutes. And
I love that.
You can always keep going, right? You can always write another card, but there's
just starting. It's kind of like,
there's something that comes from the success of that. So that my workshop this fall was making a recipe card, just a recipe card journal. And all it takes is a hole punch. You know, I'm by my art table. So it's just having a hole punch and having recipe
I love how you bring the tool.
Right. And then just, I mean, it's all right here. Like we're in the space, right? Like taking one of these little, sound effects. Taking one of these little metal rings, right? And then just binding them. But
that is such a great idea.
Just to make it attainable. It doesn't have to be this huge thing. It can be, and for oftentimes I keep that recipe card box just in my kitchen because when I'm waiting for the coffee to brew in the morning, or those little moments, it's that habit stacking of like, if I have this out on my counter, I mean, it belongs there. It's a recipe card box. Like I can pull that out and I can just journal. You know, Julia Cameron is famous, you know, author of The Artist's Way is famous
Yes.
for talking about morning pages. Like what are
Yes.
those thoughts that I can just pour out onto a page? Like just taking a recipe card in the morning and just dropping in with those thoughts. So that's
I love
a
the
key.
accessibility of that,
Yeah.
Natalie.
Yeah.
Such a great idea because I tend to kind of like I try
Yeah.
not to spread my stuff all over the property.
Yeah. Right.
Because some people think that I have enough dedicated space. But, but I love the idea of having something like accessible where
Yeah.
you don't feel like, oh, I got to get up. It's kind of like, do you ever
Right.
jelly plate print?
Oh yes. Oh
Okay.
yes.
Do you,
Yeah.
so my friend Kim was on the show a couple of episodes back, and
Yeah.
her thing is having a 5-minute morning. And
Yeah.
like, and my friend Lisa too talked about
Yeah.
how like Kim's influence in mark making or just
Yeah.
connecting to something, 5
Yeah.
minutes, right? Just
Yeah.
turn
Yep.
on,
Yep.
get it going
In the flow. Yeah.
in the flow. Exactly. And I love the idea of, so like my point about jelly plate printing is I love doing it. I don't do it very often because it's so much stuff to get
Yes.
out, right?
Exactly. If
And
the table isn't set, if you don't have your mise en
yes,
place
yes,
ready, it's hard to start cooking,
yes.
right?
It
Yeah.
makes a mess and the stuff has to dry. And it's just like,
Yeah.
I love it, but I have a real barrier because
Yeah.
of just getting out all the things,
All
right?
the things. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So I love with this recipe card idea, like for me, if it were in the kitchen in a
Yeah.
recipe box, it
Right.
doesn't look like it doesn't belong. And
No,
it
exactly. This
right,
belongs
doesn't look
here.
messy. It looks like a part of it. Anyway,
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah.
So
And
that's what's on your work table.
yeah, and then you can strew those. Like I also like I leave some in my glove compartment. Like I leave some, you know, so that or I keep some in my handbag, in my laptop bag, so that if I ever want to jot that out, and then I can just add them to the box, to the section, you know, like I have work reflections, you know, one of my favorite creative journaling prompts that was given to me by a very dear friend's mother when I was 18 years old and very homesick in college. She wrote me a letter like we used to do in the olden days. We're starting to do that again, right? But she wrote me a letter.
A stamp and an envelope. Yeah.
And she gave me the advice that has become one of my favorite creative journaling prompts. And
Okay, can't wait for this.
at the end of each day, try journaling on these 3 questions. And this is simple, but I'll try to speak slower than usual if you're trying to jot this down. The first is, what's something good that happened today? One good thing. You know, it could be the thing that brought you joy, or, you know, just one good thing. And then the second question is, what's one thing I would do differently if I had the day to do over again? And the key thing here is to pick something that's in your control, right? And not like, I would have had it not snow. Like that's beyond us, right? You know, like, like what's the thing in your control? Just tiny, right?
Right.
What's one thing I'm looking forward to tomorrow? And that's just a pulse check that really provides for, you know, if you do that over time, you will pick up on your own patterns on a deeper, richer level than just the transactional afterthoughts of the day, right? And so I have a little section in my recipe card box that's just on those 3 questions. And they're great to take to a general reflection on life, or if you're in a new job or working through a hard thing, or in a robust and abundant time, just taking the time to answer those 3 questions can really help you stay in touch with you. That's just been a practice that
that was like really good advice. I mean, and look at how that's like stayed with you.
Yeah, I was 18 a long time ago.
Like most of your life. And I think that's it. Like you're giving us so many takeaways today, Natalie. Thank you. Because you know, I live a pretty artistic life, right? And I'm very lucky and privileged that I'm able to do that. But sometimes I need to come back to some fill up the cup type practices. Excuse me, and not be so, I'm so momentum-y, right? I've got so much drive that everything's about, you know, the drive. And so I appreciate the intentionality. It really speaks to my life in my yoga world too, of course. Like lots of language that, you know, crosses over. And I think that you describe it so well. And you really painted a picture of what's on that work table. So
yeah, I mean, there's more, but
of course.
The other, I will say the other thing I've been taking a couple of painting classes recently, just to like, I do my own, but I took a really cool watercolor class yesterday, meditative watercolor. And the whole idea is to really be in the process versus focused on the outcome. And I've taken 3 classes from this instructor now. And
were they local? Were they online? Like, how did you do this?
Yep. So her name, is it okay just to, so I'm not getting any kickbacks for this, but, you know, a wonderful maker. She'd also be a great guest on your podcast. So her
awesome.
Ginger Markley, and that's Ginger with a J.
Okay.
And I found her through a really cool, local to Minnesota. So in the metro area, there's a place, the Toolbox Collective.
Cool.
And they teach all kinds of fun artsy craftsy classes. And so I found her and just to have taken now 3 of her classes. And the first class that I went to, I was really focused on wanting to make a cool watercolor. Like I wanted to make a cool watercolor. I had some thoughts about what I wanted to do with
I love the desperation in your voice there, Natalie.
Right.
I love the desperation. You're just like, I want to make a watercolor.
right, exactly. And it's fine. What I made that day was fine. It was fine. Like, and then I went again later. It was like a 2-part series. And the next time I just decided to play and to see what does it feel like for the paint to touch the page? And what does it feel like to, you know, add this or that, or just, you know, see what the water does. And what does it look like when I paint when it's shiny versus drying? And I love what I made that day so much. And I was just playing. And so that process. So my point is I have a lot of paints and different papers and things. And I mean, it's creative chaos, right? Like this is what it looks like to be fully in your creative process, you know? And
I love all of those words. So let me tell you what's on my work table.
Yes, please.
Okay. So okay. It's all right. So I got a new cutter, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I am a power tool person.
Yes, right? I do know. I know this. I found out.
So I am bandsaws, scroll saws, drill press. Like I have all the things.
Yes.
And I really, really wanted an electric guillotine cutter, right? Not one that you pull down with your hand, but one that you plug in and it goes shadunk. And that's all. Like I wanted to be able to cut the spine off of a book. Is what I really wanted.
Yeah. Cool.
And right, but they are wildly cost prohibitive. Like there's a comma and 3 zeros, and in some cases there's 2 numbers and then 3 zeros. Like ridiculous,
it's
right?
It's like the menu that doesn't have the prices.
Yes,
it's like
exactly.
Okay, bring in another lead here.
And Darren, bless his heart, is supportive, but he would just be like, "Okay, girl, you need a brain transplant if you want to come to the negotiation table asking for $13,000 for a cutter, right?" Okay. So I'm like, okay. So in my mind, I keep thinking, you know, while I do not wish for the demise of anyone's business because that would be rude, what I really need is like a print shop that business and is like liquidating this kind of stuff, right? And so I just keep my eye on auction sites. I was keeping my eye on Craigslist. And then I went to Facebook Marketplace.
Oh, yeah, you did.
Natalie, on this one particular day, there were
two.
There were 2. And we went and we got it. And it was great. And I love it so much. And it is so wildly satisfying. But I have not just been cutting the spines off of books, but I've been cutting my bookboard collection at a pretty good clip, right? Like I'm learning how to get, like yesterday I was playing it, like in the beginning, I was just kind of playing around with how many pieces of bookboard. And when I say bookboard, for those of you listening, I'm talking about the covers of books that I remove and then I line them up and put them in the cutter because I do it on my bandsaw, but I get a whole lot of background chaff.
Sure.
Because the blade is so robust that it tears up the back of the cardboard, basically, of the book. And then I have to cut it and clean it and adds an extra step. And also, even with like a fence to like guide my lines, it gets a little crooked sometimes. And like 90-degree angles have never been my strong suit. Right. So anyway, so this new cutter. Yesterday, I put in like 10 pieces of bookboard at a time, and I kept it back to about 1/4 of an inch.
Okay.
So I'm getting 1/4 of an inch strips of bookboard, and I've never been able to do that before because I can't get that close to the blade. Okay.
That's
so then the vision starts, right? And I'm like, these kind of feel like they could be raised. Like these feel like, so now this is what's on my work table.
Yeah, I'm still there. I'm there.
It's 50 high and 30 wide, and it's a sun.
Okay.
And like I've already done the bookboard collage of the yellow bit. So imagine the sun is off to the side and then all of the rays, and I've got 20 rays
Wow.
shooting from the sun, right? All the
Oh
way
my
around. And it's
gosh.
30 wide, 50 high. So right now I'm assembling the rays. And I've never really been specific with color when I do these kinds of things. Like I just mush it all together and
Yeah.
it turns out. So this is my first time of really focusing on a color theory, which intimidates me because
Yeah.
I don't think that way, right? So
Yeah.
I'm having to be a little bit more intentional and think about where I'm heading, but it's the piecing because each ray, stay with me,
I'm here.
each ray is outlined by black bookboard so that
Okay.
it pops,
Yeah.
right?
So it pops. Yep.
So it pops. So I have to not only fit it, I have to fit it in between the two rays. And the thing about my bookboard collage work typically is I have an edge. So like if I'm working on a box or a Lazy Susan or a pennant or even a book, I can bring that bookboard to the edge, make a line where it ends, cut it, and then put it in place.
Yeah.
I don't have any edges.
Oh, wow.
Right. So what I'm trying to apply some maybe quilting theory.
Okay.
Trying to like make a paper piece
Yeah.
pattern on the bottom
Yeah.
so that I can cut these pieces to fit.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's
Well, the
I
thing
feel
is
it.
it's not very Jolene-y.
Well,
because
well, it is
so,
now.
well, now it is, but it's like so deliberate and
Yeah.
so specific, and it's not a grab and go, because grab and go is where I shine. Like muscling it together has been like my saying for a long time. But I can't wait to get back down there and work on it. The other problem is that it doesn't fit on my work table, and I can't work on an easel because I use wood glue, and so it have to be down. So I'm working on the floor.
Yeah.
Which is fine, but like my butt hurts from like sitting on the concrete floor. But like I can't wait to get back to it. So that's what's on my list.
That's great. That's great. You know, it reminds me a little bit about the collage technique that's become my favorite and most beloved collage practice. So you're familiar, I know you're familiar, but for listeners who may or may not be familiar with the Japanese philosophy Kintsugi.
Yep.
Kintsugi, Kintsugi. So this idea of when pottery breaks or, you know, if things get nicked or cracked, instead of discarding it, taking precious gold lacquer and glue and put it back together and highlight the places where we've come undone. Or it's kind of like an and space.
Right.
Like what you're talking about in your project, like there's an and space where things are coming together. And that as a collage technique and as a prompt to get into a whole way of journaling and just being creative. It allows us to course correct and acknowledge that these things that happen in the and space might be some of the most beautiful things, or this part that's going to make everything else pop. That's not the interruption. That might be the real part of the whole.
Well, and what's so interesting about this particular project, you know, to your point of putting things together, as I was working on it yesterday, you know, Darren came into my workshop and he was like, "Oh, who is this for?" And I was like, "It is for me, sir." Like this one is this time of year where I'm working on things for other people. But I was like, this one is for me. And it's like, you know how it's like an itch, right? I've been thinking about it. I've been thinking about trying to be a bit more deliberate with my piece. And so it was like, you know what, and my favorite thing is making new things out of old things. So in my collection of discarded frames, I found one. And, you know, here is a really great, if you don't do that, and I don't know if this is your kind of art space, but like, so what I love to do is I love to get canvases that are at Goodwill or people are going to throw away. And it's probably more often like mass media or mass produced art, you know, like that kind of stuff. And the canvas itself can't always be fixed or tightened.
Right.
because it's, got whatever plasticky,
Right.
acrylic top
Yep.
coat. So what I do is I cut a piece of masonite
Mm-hmm.
to the size of the wood frame that
Okay.
canvas is on, and then drill the masonite into the wood.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
then I don't have to build a new
Yeah.
frame.
Yeah.
I've saved the canvas
You're
from the ground.
sparing something from,
Yeah,
yep.
yeah,
Yep.
and
No,
I've
that's,
just built a new substrate.
yeah.
So it's like when folks are thinking about, well, what do you use for
Yeah.
a background?
Yeah.
That's my trick.
Yeah.
Masonite drilled into, and you just measure first, right?
Yeah.
Measure what you're saving, and that's exactly what I did.
And then what's the advice from the best tailor? Measure twice,
Measure, yeah,
cut once,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. We
Yeah.
must have measured 10 times because we
Yeah.
were just like, oh my
Yeah.
God, let's make
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. But
Um,
yeah, I love you highlighting the value of rescuing things from the
oh yeah,
landfill or from whatnot. I mean, I'm going to hold up one of my favorite like junk journal, art journals of all time is
yes.
this vintage book from 1942. The title is Tomorrow About This Time. And I actually made this in a class with another artist who, Molly Anthony. And, this is a book that is now filled with so many cherished collages and, various art journaling entries that have spared a lot of things from recycling, which is sometimes wish cycling, like, let's be honest, right? But I think this is a tie that binds.
Right.
I like to look at anything and think what's something more I can do with that, and
Yeah, me
that's
too.
a practice in and of itself. Visual thinking strategies, like
Mhm.
to look at art and behold it is to say, what do I see here? And what makes
Right.
me say that? And what else does this remind me of? What's been studied with healthcare professionals is that folks who have a practice of taking those questions and beholding art, like what you're describing or what
Mhm.
I do, or walking through the Minneapolis Institute of Art, those who can slow down and be less transactional with looking at things and just seeing it for what it is, seeing it beyond that, the research is showing that clinicians who have a practice of slowing down to be in touch with that process are less likely to misdiagnose. They are they're more likely to write narrative notes that are more robust because there's a process that gets us in touch, again,
Mhm.
dropping in and seeing things on a deeper level than what's at face value. And so whether you're doing the type of project that you're describing or like the art journaling that I do, or just pausing to behold the art that is before you, like that in and of itself is being creative. That's being in creativity.
You
And yeah.
you come with really good advice and really good words. And so a couple of things I want to circle back to.
Yeah.
One, Molly Anthony,
Yes.
she's one of my best friends.
Something.
And
Something else. She's my
and
art journaling hero is what she is.
yes, she's amazing. She is
Yeah.
amazing. Molly is this year in 2025. I've actually lost count, but I think this will be Molly's seventh or eighth retreat
Amazing.
at Big Raven Farm in an art journaling space.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really great time for you and I to talk
Yeah.
about too what
Yeah.
we've got coming up.
Yes.
So Natalie and I are collaborating as well. And can you tell folks what you and I are working on here in the spring?
Let's do this. Big
Yeah,
Raven
let's
Farm
tell them.
retreat, creative journaling for resilience. It's a retreat. It's happening, and boy, like talk about things that I never dreamed I would get on my bingo card at this stage. I'm so looking forward to this, and it's everything that we've been talking about.
Yep.
It's being together, really honing in on the social connection that can make our practice of creative expression just so much richer in the lovely environment that is Big Raven Farm. I mean, this place, I'm telling you, I first learned about you, Jolene, through one of our warm and wonderful mutuals.
Yes,
And what's her
yes,
name? Her Becca Riki, who is traveling the world this year and
yes.
becoming just the next version of herself. But I did some nutrition coaching with Becca years ago. We went to college
Mhm.
together, and she had attended a retreat at Big Raven Farm, and on a beautiful walk through a nature preserve one day was describing every detail of your space. And she's like, I think the two of you need to connect. And I've just, Jolene, you have just consistently delivered on my first impression of you, which is this is a creative being in the world who I have so much to learn from. And so to know that we have this coming up in the spring
It's
is
exciting,
something that is
isn't it?
just this bright light that's on the other side of our winter cocoon that we're also going to love.
Well, first, thank you so much for the kind things that you just said. Like, I'm gonna drop into those, like really wiggle around in there because I love them so much. But okay, so the name of your retreat is Resilience.
Creative journaling for resilience.
Yep. And when is it?
And it is April 10th through the 13th.
Yep.
So,
and who can come? Do you have to be a healthcare person to come? Can anybody?
You do not have to be a healthcare person to come. And this is really circling back to how our conversation started. The community that I've rallied, the Reflective Collective, although it started with healthcare workers.
Yeah.
Kind of like what our Surgeon General said, for us to be healing as a nation, for us to be healing as individuals, for us to be healing, it takes all of us. And so even though the evidence-based practices that I bring to the table, that research is studying, does work in healthcare and for healthcare professionals, this is for all of us. We are in community to really be curious about what healing looks and feels like, especially in a space of creative expression. And so yeah, although I know those who have already signed up, and we've only just begun to really release, like, this is happening. but although we've got a couple of people who have experience and work in healthcare, my community, the Reflective Collective, it's teachers, it's people in spaces, it's writers, it's artists, it's there are a lot of healthcare professionals, but the more that we can be together in community and just see that and space between us, and especially in a reflective, beautiful surrounding like Big Raven Farm, like this is the good stuff. I have no doubt I'm going to look back on my life and be like, that's one of the bright spots. That's one of the good times.
I'm looking forward to it too. And I think that, like, paired with that, like all the things you've been talking about the resilience, the dropping in, the intentionality, the practice, like the way that I believe you and I have built it is, you don't have to be an artist, right, for this. You just have to be a human.
Exactly.
Right.
In fact, if you say I'm not an artist or I'm not a writer, this is especially for you.
Yeah, exactly.
This is especially for you, because our point is to meet each other where we're at on whatever our creative journey is, and be together in that. And that's the creativity coaching that will come with it. And the special offer I want to make is anyone who registers for this retreat, I would love to offer one Kaizen Muse creativity coaching session, which is the better part of an hour, and really focuses on the acronym that we use in Kaizen Muse is planets, what you could expect from that hour, and then what you can expect as an amuse-bouche to the retreat that we're having is providing experience, being together and lowering expectations surrounding what it means to be creative, getting curious and asking questions, normalizing the things about us that tend to get in our own way, elevating and enhancing the things that we can bring to the table, teaching tools, and then really, really getting good at taking small steps together. Like, that's the planets acronym. And so I'd love to offer a session to anyone who is signing up for our retreat in the spring. And then that will be a chance for me to really authentically get to know who's going to be with us.
Can I have a session?
Yes, you can.
That sounds amazing. So, okay. So our collaborative retreat is in April. It is on our Big Raven Farm retreat page. I'll be sure to link it in the show notes.
Excellent.
And not just along with like all these things that we've been talking about, but like also, I think the magic of Big Raven Farm is that Darren and I got to work on, like, I feel so boastful when I say this, but I just have to say it because it's true. We're really, really good at taking care of people.
Yeah.
And we've built a business and a brand based on, when you come here, you are so well tended to. Like, the food that we serve, the way that we've prepared your rooms, the yoga that I lead, even the behavior of our dog. Like, like he has a role, right? And the goal is to take care of people. So it's really immersive, in your needs.
Yeah.
And like, that's what we've built our business based on. So
Beautiful.
just imagine like,
Yeah.
4 days and 3 nights of that.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
what we're talking about. But I'll link all of that in the show notes.
Yeah,
So
that's great. The
yes.
other link, Jolene, that I think we talked about, I'd love to include in the show notes. So I do
Yeah.
still have some calendars left, my 2025 desk
Oh,
calendar.
sure,
And
sure.
with that is a community. So it's
Mm,
not just a calendar. When you buy
mhm.
a desk calendar, you're invited into, we do monthly calls. We use Google Meet. My husband produces the call. It's kind of like a show, right? Like kind of like this,
Yeah.
but it's live and interactive.
Yeah.
And it's a continued taste of more of what you could expect from the retreat, and really just what I'm trying to put in the world, which is creative expression together. And
Mhm.
so while supplies last, I'm going to do a special. If you're listening to this later, as long as I have calendars left, and I'm really almost running out, which is an exciting problem for an artist, but I
Sure.
usually sell them for $29 each, and I'd love to sell them for $40, and that's shipping included. And so make sure that you note Happy Time Craftcast, and then my email will be in the show notes, and that's how you order them. Or you
I
can,
love that, Natalie. That's
yes.
perfect.
So anyway,
Well,
it's a way to have a taste of what we're doing together.
well, I think you also, I am always remiss. I should remind folks that, so, we're doing this the week before Christmas.
Yes.
But at Big Raven, bigravenfarm.com, we always have gift certificates,
Yes.
and you can get them in any amount. So we have them built in like yoga mat prices and yoga mat with personalization prices. And then we have like something for a retreat. Like I can't remember the exact number. But you can always get them in any denomination. So if you are looking for, what do I get my really special someone, we can also do gift certificates for the retreats. So
Lovely.
that out there. But okay. Before we go though, like we have to do what has become my most favorite part and our listeners' favorite part. So I'm going to ask you some questions. I ask everybody these questions. You can give one-word answers or you can expand. But just gives us a chance to get to know you even a little bit better before we say goodbye. And they're not hard, right? So, and I know you're familiar with these, but the first
I'm ready.
What is your favorite word? And it can be this moment, this day, this week. Like it doesn't, and I know it changes.
Yeah, energy.
Oh,
yeah. I do word of the year, and so energy is my 2025 word, and I always choose a companion word. So nourishment is the companion word to my energy. So that's what's now, but I would say
you said a word early in our show that I was just like, oh, I love that word. And it was around the time of dropping in. I'll have to remember what you said. It was really good. I was like,
say some words. I don't know. We'll listen.
I'll find it. But I agree with you. Energy is really good. What about, do you have then a least favorite?
A least favorite word? My practice, when I pick my word of the year, my practice is to look up the synonyms and the antonyms. So whatever the antonym to energy, that's my current least favorite word, I guess. And yet, how can that be in dialogue with my favorite word is maybe the journaling exercise that I would offer.
Wow, look at you. Wow, I love that. I'm learning so much from you today. Like,
back at you, Jolene.
All right, so then let's get serious, Natalie. What is the best kind of sandwich?
Yep. Sandwich. I love any, take two things and put them together with something yummy in the middle, and that's great. My all-time favorite sandwich is the conger, and this was something that, of all places, a dear friend of mine who spent time in Japan had this sandwich in Hong Kong, which is why it's called the conger. Nothing about it is Hong Kong.
Yeah,
it's just stir-fried veggies.
Okay.
Stir fry up some veggies, like your eggplant, zucchini, onion, some yumminess.
Okay.
With a little olive oil, salt and pepper. Shove it in your bread of choice. Like I like either a baguette, or this one was first enjoyed on a bagel, actually a bagel sandwich.
I love
but whatever
shove
you like
it.
right? Stuff it in a peanut, whatever you like, and then it's cream cheese and pesto, and then sprinkle some fresh onions and tomatoes on top. Mwah. You're welcome. It's
my gosh, it's amazing.
The conger.
I love it. I usually think ice cream sandwich. I think like classic BLT, but only in the summer when our neighbors share their tomatoes.
Yeah.
And the tomato has to kind of drip. And
oh yeah, it's got to be the sink. The New York Times actually published "Eat Over the Sink" tomato sandwich.
Yes, exactly. Yes, that. But here, like in the winter months, I'm kind of like I want something with naan.
Yeah.
Like I want to,
Mm.
as you
Oh
say,
yeah.
shove,
Warm
shove
shove,
something.
shove something in naan. I'm here for it. Like
Yeah,
let's do
shove
lunch.
something in the naan. I don't know what, but like that's kind of
Yeah,
what I'm like
I
currently.
like it. I like it. I
So,
like
do
it.
you believe that there is this a scary animal, and if so, what is it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm probably, if I were to say name a scary, like I've always kind of had a little bit of a fear of snakes, which I
Yeah,
know is a reptile, but it's interesting. The year of the snake is coming. Next year is after Lunar New Year, which is end of January. And, I think I turned 50 this year. And so I'm thinking a lot about the skin we shed and how we can really channel the virtues of the snake. So I'm here to sit with the fear and here to say fear will always be there.
right.
Let's find a way to just cuddle up with that snake in the cocoon.
I
Right.
love it. You are what I call a lemonade girl. Like you are a lemonade girl. Like you've got
Well,
the ability to like lemonade a lemon,
well,
like I love that about
well,
you.
that's the kintsugi. It's different than silver lining, right? It's
Right,
like finding the
exactly.
gold, versus the right.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you.
Exactly.
Yeah, thank you.
So I
You
said,
scary animal?
well, I live on a farm, and so
Yeah,
I'm like, yards from the field.
yeah,
And so, like I said earlier,
yeah.
skunk,
Uh huh. Uh huh.
and it's more about what that skunk means for me and my own time management and how much I would have to clean like my dog and my home, like
Uh-huh. Yeah,
like
yeah,
it's scary
yeah,
and like the outcome of that
yeah,
because I would have so much to do.
yeah.
But this spring, so I'm in my office right now, and Augie, the world's best dog, he is laying on a pink comforter that was Georgie,
Mm.
my daughter's, when she was like in middle school, and it's pink and fluffy and it's super super cute. And I came in one day this spring, and there was a spider on there that was like a tarantula, kind of. Like I'm not even
Ooh,
exaggerating. Like it was humongous.
yeah, like
It was
fuzzy.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
fuzzy. And it
yeah,
stopped me in my tracks, and I was
yeah.
like, "Where is your family?" Um, because, like, are you just like an anomaly?
Oh
Like,
my goodness.
how did you get here? Like,
Oh
what's the
my God.
story? And I was a big girl. I took care of it by myself. I got it in the dustbuster all by myself, and then I put a sock in the dustbuster. So it was,
Yeah,
but I was like, I have a little residual fear. I always look at that pink blanket like
yeah,
there's gonna be
yeah,
another one. And
yeah.
apparently
Well,
it was some kind of, I don't know, Darren looked it up, but like it could have wore a wedding ring. This thing was
wow.
huge.
That's
It was
impressive.
huge. Yeah. Scared the crap out of me for
Oh
sure.
boy.
For sure. All right. So okay. So
I love
what
it.
does my numbers are wrong.
Yeah.
So what does being an artist mean to you? Like when you have the time to sit in that space and be intentional and
Mhm.
do the things that you talk about, like what does it mean to you?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, this is one that I've given a lot of thought to. I
Mm,
think being an artist means to be fully alive.
yeah, I do
Yeah.
too. I do too.
Yeah.
And like I mentioned, our episode with Royce this week, she talked about how it was saving.
Yeah.
And like all of that kind of comes together for me. And I agree with you that I feel better and more
Yeah.
whole
Yeah.
when I am able to work with my hands.
Yeah.
My takeaway from today, Natalie, is that like I really love how you talk about the intentionality of it because I'm a little bit more tornado-y. I'm a little bit more, I gotta make something, like I just crave like the making and
Yeah.
the figuring out like a new
Yeah.
way to use old things. Um,
Yeah.
like I'm
Mm.
an art journaler too, and like even
Mm.
coming back to that, like the recipe cards, like you had so many great
Yeah.
ideas for connecting it in your daily life. Love
Thank
that.
you.
Love
Thank
that. Love
you.
that.
Well, it's important. It's been a true joy to bring some of these practices
Mhm.
into my day job, as we will say. I'm
Yeah.
finding that the more we can introduce creativity in spaces where we don't necessarily know or think it belongs, like
Mhm.
creativity is problem solving.
Yeah. Oh,
Creativity is getting in touch with ourselves and those around us, and that's how we're going to help. That's how we help others healed,
Right.
including ourselves. So thanks for an hour of really great conversation around
Oh,
very
absolutely.
nourishing energy, Jolene.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm going to go to my, let's go to this one. So what profession other than the one that you have would you like to attempt?
Ooh, holy cow. I mean, maybe I would go back to, I spent about 10 years driving the scrapmobile for this local reusable arts materials organization, Art Starts, Art
No way.
Crafts.
That
And I
sounds
would maybe just
amazing.
in my retirement start driving the scrapmobile, just driving around a big bread wagon full of art supplies and parking in neighborhoods and just getting out with a buffet table and doing art with whoever walks by. I
Oh
think I
my
would do
gosh,
that
I
again.
love that.
Yeah, it was a
I've
good
been talking to
decade.
Darren about like I kind of want to see, but I don't think my motives are very pure
Okay.
because I've been wanting to
Honest.
volunteer at the thrift store
Yeah.
in like the sorting. But
Ah.
no, don't no. I feel like my motives are getting the good stuff first. Like I feel
I mean, the fox is the finder. I mean, listen.
like I just love the hunt, and I love
Yeah.
organizing and like
Yeah.
meeting volunteers. But I feel like my motives are not completely without selfish intent.
Well, there is a condition called being human. I think there was a whole Friends episode about how there's no selfless act or something.
Right. The
Like, look,
bee
you're still
sting.
doing
Yeah,
something. Like, well, I worked as a volunteer coordinator for many years, and I would always say, "What's in it for you?" Because if you don't have a hook like that, it sometimes can be hard to keep it afloat.
exactly.
So,
Exactly.
you're still getting good volunteer work done. Go for it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I have one more for you, and we'll
Okay.
wrap up with this, and that
Okay.
is what brings you the most happiness?
It's being with the people who I love the most in creative moments. Yeah. And
Mhm.
I like honestly, if I were to just put that card out on the table, my daughter got a new trumpet this week, my husband got a new guitar this week, and I dusted off my flute. Like being in a space of making music together with those two people who are my dearest, like that brings me the most happiness. And on that happiness, I can build all of this other great stuff that we talked about. Yeah. How about you?
Well, Um, so I honestly think it's taking care of people.
Mm.
And I mean, I know you take care of people in your day job,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
so do I.
Mm.
But when people leave my home
Mm.
and they say, I just can't believe, like, I can't believe this. Like,
Mm.
I don't have words to describe this experience. And,
Yeah.
like this weekend was life changing.
Yeah.
It's really fabulous to my inner
Yeah.
core. And
Yeah.
I mean, and of course, I love my children, blah, blah, blah. Like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love those guys and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
make me so happy. But when they're not here
Yeah.
and when I can't be like in their space,
Yeah.
um, I get really fired up with that feeling.
Yeah.
And it's interesting too, the way that it presents itself when we are off season,
Mm.
because retreats have a definite season.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
we're really, really busy in the spring and then
Sure.
again, really busy in the fall.
Yeah.
And so in the winter, it's kind of quiet around here. And
Yeah.
both Darren and I are kind of looking at each other like,
Yeah.
you feel a little something different? And I'm like, yeah, I
Yeah.
feel a little something different. And it's just that we don't have all of
Yeah.
that energy,
Mm.
tending, nurturing,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I love that. And we had a retreat, one of our last ones. Oh, it was Darren's cooking retreat.
Mm.
And in the evening, people kind of they did puzzles, they played games, they did some
Mm.
drawing, like they did all
Mm.
kinds of fun things.
Yeah.
We went to the distillery, like they did all
Oh,
kinds of things.
cool. Yeah.
But I sat down with a couple of our guests and I played a board game. And it was so fun
Mm.
to just be in each other's company.
Yeah.
And it was kind of mindless and no risk and who cares. And
Yeah.
I just felt my cup was full. It
Yeah.
was absolutely full in being
Oh,
in those spaces. So,
really, really well said. That's
yeah.
well said. I love
Well, thank you. Can you believe how fast an hour goes?
it. Went fast.
We went over a little bit. I'm so sorry. Thank you for, being generous with your time. I will
Mm.
be sure to link in the show notes what's going on with you,
Excellent.
the calendar, the
Awesome.
retreat, all the things. And if I haven't said it before, Natalie, I do hope you know my friend Suzanne Early over at Strawberry Moon Magazine. Have I talked to you about her?
We haven't talked, but I've been admiring from a distance.
Okay. I really think that you need to watch for the submission times.
Okay.
And get Strawberry Moon. It is just an amazing resource for people who are in art and visual journaling.
Oh, fabulous.
it's just so beautifully done. And I highly, highly recommend.
Thank you. Thank you. I love a good call to action. Onward. On all good things must come to a next thing, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. And for those of you listening and with us live today, thank you so much for your comments and for being so supportive of the things that Natalie and I are working on. And join me on our next show. My next show is January 8th. My guest is Christy Nelson, and we'll be talking about all kinds of fabulous things. So I hope you will join us for that. Have a great holiday week in whatever ways you may or may not celebrate. I will be thinking about you. And thanks so much to Natalie.
Thanks, Jolene.
You
Tidings of
betcha.
joy.
Okay, bye, everybody.
Take care.